All set. Let the record reflect we've reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask you to remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And remain standing as we take a moment to remember some longtime Madison residents we lost over the past few weeks. Lucy Paolela, lifelong Madison resident, died on October 24th, age of 84. Survived by her siblings Jean, Marianne, Madeline, Dominic, John, and Elizabeth, as well as many nieces and nephews and friends. She was born in Morristown, June of 1938. Raised in Madison, second oldest of 8 children. And when her parents died at a young age, Lucy and her late brother Sal and their sisters raised the 4 younger siblings. Lucy was an integral part of the lives of Sal's children and grandchildren as she stepped up to fill the void after Sal's wife passed away. She is the loving and caring godmother to her 5 godchildren. She had a long career as a bookkeeper at Betterson LLC. She was an avid Mets fan, enjoyed playing poker, cooking traditional Italian dishes, desserts, and playing bingo, as well as an occasional family casino day trip. She was a member of the St. Vincent Martyr Church, also worshipped at St. Thomas More and Shrine of St. Joseph. We also remember Alice Margaret McGuire, age 98, passed away at her home in Madison, surrounded by her family. She was born in Orange, grew up in East Orange. At the age of 7, her family moved to Madison to live in a home that was built by her grandparents when they came over from Ireland. Graduated from Madison High in 1942, joined the Nurse Cadet Corps during World War II, received her nursing degree from Overlook Hospital's nursing school in 1946, and her employment began as a pediatric nurse at Overlook Hospital, followed by time spent in private medical practice in Springfield. Also a member of St. Vincent Martyr Church, longtime member of the Rosary Society, and also a member of the American Legion Auxiliary. She is survived by her children, Kathleen, Patricia, Denise, Beth, John, and David, along with their spouses. Also 7 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren, predeceased by her husband, John Joseph McGuire, in 2011. And we also want to remember Peggy Evitz Shoulders, a mother-in-law of our Recreation Advisory Chair, Dave Carver, who passed away on October 24th. So let us take a moment to remember Lucy Paolela, Alice McGuire, and Peggy Shoulders, and let us pass our thoughts on to their families and friends that they leave behind. Thank you. May I have a motion for the regular minutes of October 12th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and a motion for the executive minutes of October 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Already been discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, welcome all. October was a month with an extra Monday, so we had an extra week in between meetings, not to mention that we also got an extra hour of sleep. That actually drives us crazy. And it also gave me a little extra time to grow a beard, so welcome back. And you may have not noticed, but if you want to look to my left and right, that George and Martha have returned to the wall behind me. These beautiful paintings were restored through the generosity of the Hartley Dodge trustees. They had previously restored the Lincoln portrait, which I'm looking at across the room. The trustees oversee the trust that Geraldine Rockefeller Dodge established when she gifted this building to Madison. So in addition of taking care of our beautiful artwork, they are also helping us with the many major projects that this beautiful building puts up here. And of course, in between meetings, we had an election. I want to congratulate Rachel on your re-election. The work in seems like more than 3 years, but the work has just begun, and it's great to have you on board for another term, especially as you lead our climate action. This work, while all local, will make a difference to the world. And Tom, congratulations on your election to the council. For years, you've been challenging us to act and make a difference in Madison and from the podium, and now you changed direction. We'll be sitting at the table here in about 6 weeks and working continually just as you have to make Madison a better place for all. And I also want to thank Lenora Clark and Matt Van Natten for stepping forward to run for council. I know that is not an easy step to run, to put yourself out there, knocking on doors. We appreciate their interest in Madison and their willingness to serve. And also in between meetings, of course, there was Halloween. Another year that we didn't have a major weather event around Halloween, knock on wood, so that was very nice. In fact, it was a incredible day for the annual parade on the Chamber's annual parade in downtown on the 29th. Our downtown was filled with great variety of costumes. My personal favorite was a homemade air balloon costume, and there was a couple good family-themed costumes also. And the night before was a successful trunk or treat, which was right in front here. And this past Friday was Veterans Day with the annual recognition of our veterans hosted by American Legion Post 43. I want to thank the Legion for putting together another great ceremony and for all those that showed up in the rain. It started off as a little drizzle and was pretty steady by the time we wrapped up. And of course, a big thank you to all our veterans who stepped forward to serve our country. And lastly, this past Saturday, we had a ribbon cutting for Dow Madison. And all those that joined the ribbon cutting would agree that it was a ribbon cutting like no other. The celebration was kicked off with the Lion Dance, which included yours truly having lettuce tossed at me through the mouth of the lion. So that was an interesting one. I assume it means it brings good luck or a healthy meal, but I've been healthy ever since, so I'm going for both. And then we were all treated to a great meal there. And our Employee of the Month, no surprise, is Lisa Ellis, Director of Business Development, has been named our Employee of the Month. Everyone knows that Lisa, on an annual basis, puts together an amazing Bottle Hill Day, almost single-handedly. And on a normal year, it's an amazing task. This year, she had to do it twice because of the remnants of Hurricane Ian, which led to the 2-week postponement. And, the weather was perfect 2 weeks later, and what was even more amazing was the fact that it was, if not a record crowd, certainly one of the largest we've ever had. And I'm pretty sure that Lisa is watching at home, as she always does, so let's just stand up and give Lisa a standing ovation. Claire Whitcomb probably feels pretty good. She just walked in, there was a standing ovation. That was for Lisa Ellis. And I've got a proclamation to present right now. So we've got members of the Madison Historical Society, Nicolina, Ann, Kate and Jim Malcolm, Rebecca, Doug and Susan Simon, Noreen, Dave Luber, all please come forward.
All right. Welcome all. And as we know, Madison is a town steeped in history, but history can be lost if there's no one to steward the keeping of those records. And the history behind the Madison Historical Society is like many organizations. A group gets together for what they think is going to be one task, which you'll hear about shortly. And they think, a year from now we'll be successful with this task and we can pat ourselves on the back and move on. But of course what often happens with these groups is they get inspired that if we can do this and be successful, we can do more. And that's what happened 100 years ago, and as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Madison Historical Society. So whereas Madison Historical Society was founded in 1922 by a group of civic-minded citizens committed to saving one of our most historic structures in Madison, known as the Waverly House or Madison House, which stood at the corner of Main Street and Waverly. And whereas the inn served as a stagecoach stop between Paulus Hook, for New Jersey, non-New Jersey experts, that is now Jersey City, and Morristown in 1825, and one of the patrons was the Marquis de Lafayette, French military officer who served under George Washington. Nice to have him back on the wall here. And in 1922, after the First National Bank purchased the inn's property for a new building, and this is where Chase Bank now sits, several residents raised funds to move the tavern further down Main Street to prevent it from being torn down. And whereas after the move took place in 1923, it was renamed the Bottle Hill Tavern and became home to the Historical Society until the late 1940s, when the society moved to the old Madison Public Library, which is currently a Museum of Early Trades and Crafts. And whereas after a period of not having a home in the late 1950s, the society moved to their current home in the Madison Public Library in 1969. And whereas earlier this year, the Historical Society solidified an arrangement to open a museum at Hartley Dodge Memorial to display the collection of historical documents, maps, and photographs, and that will be in the east wing on the main floor. And whereas currently the Historical Society is working on an update of the 1985 history book, The Madison Heritage Trail, to include recent history, and whereas the Historical Society offers historical plaques for homes in Madison built before 1990, and to date has distributed over 100 plaques. And whereas the Historical Society plans to begin an oral history project in 2023 to record the memories of long-term Madison residents, and that is so important, so many stories that we need to capture. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. County, the Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby recognize the 100th anniversary of Madison Historical Society and thank them for their work in preserving Madison history and educating our residents about its history. Thank you so much.
Gotta get the record.
On behalf of the Madison Historical Society, both the board and our members, I would like to thank the council and the borough for this honor. It is a tribute to those who came before us and a recognition of what we do now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and to the next 100 years. Thank you. All for coming out tonight.
We now move on to reports from committees, utilities. Council President Landrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. From the electric department replaced 3 aging utility poles, one at the intersection of Park and North Street, another one on Highland Avenue, and one on North Street. The department also transferred all of the equipment on those new poles. They've also fixed the heaters at the James Street substation. The department removed the meter and pulled back the service lines at 18 Madison Avenue in preparation for demolition. The electric department is working hard on getting all the holiday wreaths ready to be hung on the Victorian lamp posts throughout the town. And they'll be starting that this week, as a matter of fact. And it says that they will be cutting down the Christmas tree, which is being donated by a Pomeroy family on Pomeroy Road. Well, from what I understand, it's there already.
It is there.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful tree.
Beautiful tree, yes, it is.
Trees up?
And the department continues to complete solar tie-ins, house service, markouts, and trouble calls. We also continue to meet with contractors on site to discuss the ongoing projects throughout the town. And from the water department, they start off by saying it's that time of year again. During the cold months, please shut off all outside faucets and have your irrigation systems blown out by your sprinkler company. Also remove all hoses from outside anti-frost faucets. And finally, the recreation faucets in the borough parks and dog fountains in the downtown area will be shut off and closed for the winter. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety, Ms. Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Fire Department, during the month of October, the Fire Department responded to 55 fire-related incidents and 49 medical calls for a total of 104 incidents for the month of October. 45 fire prevention inspections were conducted, 28 smoke and CO resale certificates were issued. Madison's new Engine 3 was placed into full service on Tuesday, November the 8th. Fire department personnel have been mounting equipment and training with the new apparatus since she arrived in August. A spring 2023 wet down is being planned. Finally, the Madison Fire Department applied for and was awarded a $22,000 grant from the American Rescue Plan Firefighter Grant. This grant is to help ensure that our firefighters are properly protected against the threats of the COVID-19 virus. Access to funding to purchase the appropriate gear, clothing, and equipment is critical for the mental and physical health of our firefighters. From the Police Department, Madison Police Department Bike Unit recently took possession of a new battery-operated patrol bike. The bike was generously donated by Pedigo Electric Bikes here in Madison, located at 82 Main Street. This patrol bicycle was already pushed into service and has been utilized on patrol. Look for it next at the Christmas parade next Friday. Madison Police Traffic Safety Unit would like to inform residents to please be cognizant of your leaf piles in front of your residence. Please ensure that the piles are tight to the curb and do not infringe on the lanes of travel where there would be a hazard to vehicles. And finally, we cannot wait to take part in the annual Christmas parade next Friday night, November 25th. The department will have a full complement of our officers present on scene, and safety measures will be in place to ensure that everyone will feel secure. We look forward to seeing everyone next week for the start of the Christmas season in Madison. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And just to add to the leaf thing is a reminder, not only for the homeowners, keep them tight to the curb, but when you're parking a car, don't park on top of it, because
Yeah.
it certainly creates a fire hazard, or even when the leaves are wet. There is one house in my neighborhood that has leaves in front of it, even though the street was cleared, because someone parked on front of it and the DPW could not pick up the leaves. So look around for a spot that is clear of cars and leaves to park. And Community Affairs, Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Downtown Development Commission and Director of Business Development, the next meeting of the Downtown Development Commission will be held Thursday, November 17th at 7:15 p.m. in the committee room, which is right next door, in the Hartley Dodge Memorial Building. Again, everybody is invited to attend. This is an open public meeting. DDC volunteers will be hanging the white lights on the lampposts this week. This Thursday, November 17th, is the final day to shop at the Madison Farmers Market for the 2022 season. And if we think Lisa Ellis is the only person who works on the farmers market, she is. The annual Christmas parade will take place downtown on Friday, November 25th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. From the Chamber of Commerce, the Madison Area Chamber of Commerce is inviting children to participate in the month-long search to find Rosie, the Rose City reindeer, this holiday season. Beginning Friday, November 25th, more than 40 chamber member businesses will participate in this creative and fun activity to help highlight the holidays and all that is wonderful about shopping in Madison. This is a free event open to the public and for children only. For a list of participating businesses, visit the chamber website at madisonnjchamber.org. From the Madison Community Arts Center, there will be 10 consecutive days of festival events starting Friday, November 25th through December 4th. They are the Madison Holiday Arts Festival, sponsored by the Downtown Development Commission, is scheduled for 3 days from November 25th to the 27th. There are 20 events at 5 different sites: the Art Center, METC Annex, Grace Church, Harvest Bistro, Shanghai Jazz. Details including a schedule grid can be found at the MACA website, madisonarts10j.org. The Madison Community Dance Festival week will be held at the Community Arts Center from Monday, November 28th through Sunday, December 4th. Details can also be found at the MACA website. A busy weekend is coming up at the center. Friday night, there is a sold-out performance of the Golden Gaze Thank You for Being a Friend, which is a benefit for the Morris Mutual Morris. Saturday evening is the Girlzilla, featuring all-female bands in a benefit concert for Repro Logan Defense Fund. And Sunday afternoon, the Madison, New Jersey Art Jazz Society will hold a concert with Martin Pizzarelli Trio. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance and Borough Clerk, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. From the tax collector, fourth quarter taxes were due last week, with November 10th being the last day to pay without penalty. I'm happy to report that we collected almost 95% of the taxes for the fourth quarter so far, which is excellent. Earlier today, delinquent notices were mailed out to property owners with unpaid fourth quarter balances. Special thanks to Chrissy and Hattie for all their hard work. We also appreciate everyone's patience in finding the new location for the tax collector's office. As some of you know, it is now located on the second floor in the same area as the utility billing department. The easiest way to get to the tax collector's office is to park on Green Avenue, enter by the court, and take the elevator to floor 2L. Tax collection and utility have very similar functions in that they both mail out bills, post payments to accounts, make deposits, track delinquencies, and help residents. Now that both departments are in the same room, they can cross-train and better support each other during their respective busy times. From finance and administration, a couple of things. First, tomorrow we wire our monthly Board of Education payment for taxes, $3,706,395.41. So they'll get that. Second, this evening, we'll have a short presentation from administration on the State of New Jersey's Best Practices Checklist. The State Division of Local Government Services issued the checklist 4 weeks ago, and the submission was due by November 10th. It includes scored and unscored questions. The scored questions cover various topics, including personnel, budget, cybersecurity, tax collection, and capital. A municipality must attain at least 24 points in order to receive 100% of their state aid. The Best Practices Checklist also assesses Madison's compliance with various laws. It also evaluates our operations as well as our fiscal practices. The checklist provides taxpayers with additional means for evaluating a town's management. Happy to report that we scored 34 and will receive 100% of our state aid. Thank you, Jim. Jim Burnett's going to explain that in his presentation. I am very proud of Madison's fiscal and operational strength, and I want to thank everyone, the staff and elected officials, past and present, who have helped make this happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Ms. Ehrlich.
Thank you. The engineering department reports that roof replacement has begun at the Madison Public Library. The contractor hopes to complete the resurfacing work in 2 to 3 weeks, weather permitting. Separately, the library interior renovation bid documents have been drafted and circulated for review prior to a spring bid for that work. A staff and operations relocation plan is also underway, which utilizes the Chase Room at the library, as well as mobile trailers to allow continuity of service to library patrons during the interior construction next year. Over at the James Building, Madison's former public library, the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts has received funding from the New Jersey Historic Trust for renovation of the lower-level interior spaces to include mobile file and exhibit storage. Work there is expected to start later this month, and we're looking forward to learning more about the METC tonight with a presentation by Deb Starker, who will share the museum's capital project and future plans. From the Department of Public Works, DPW is picking up leaves daily. The crew works their way around town on a continuous basis until all the leaves at the curbs have been picked up. And a special thank you to DPW for assisting the police department with street closures for the Halloween parade and festivities. DPW is winterizing all borough sprinkler systems and starting to check all the snow equipment. They note that the salt bins are full and ready for snowy weather. DPW is investigating different brands of large electric mowers, and we'll have a vendor demonstrate a new model for them later this week. And we have a resolution tonight to promote Nick Santangelo to the position of foreman in the sewer department, where Nick has been serving as the acting supervisor since the sudden and very sad loss of Vito Lupino. That's all tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. And Health, Mr. Range.
Thank you, Mayor. Morris County's COVID-19 community level remains at medium, as hospitalization rate in the county is about 12 cases per 100,000. A reminder that the new booster vaccine formulations from both Pfizer and Moderna are available, and these bivalent boosters not only provide improved protection for the earlier variants, such as Alpha and Delta, the Omicron lineages from earlier this summer, BA4 and BA5, but now that nearly half the cases in the U.S. are either BQ1 or BQ1.1, those vaccines appear to continue to be effective for those variants as well. We're just going to have an alphabet soup here pretty soon. The last week in October, the Health Department held their annual flu clinics, serving more than 100 residents. If you haven't yet gotten your annual flu shot, they're readily available from your healthcare provider or at most pharmacies. If you're without insurance coverage and need a flu shot, you may contact the Health Department to make individual arrangements. Whether you get your flu or COVID vaccines from the Health Department or a private provider, now is the time to get your flu shot and be up to date on your COVID vaccines and boosters. Also coming up next month on December 3rd from 10 a.m. till noon at the DPW garage will be our annual rabies clinic. Pre-registration will not be required this year. So you and your pet can just show up and get your shot. Lastly, tonight, as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, just a reminder to consider safe food handling practices, including avoiding cross-contamination with raw poultry and making sure all food is cooked to temperature. That's all tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. On to communications and petitions.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and Council received one email dated November the 2nd from Scott Spelker of Highland Terrace supporting the preservation of the Drew Forest.
Thank you. And now we move on to our first of two invitations for public comment. This one is limited to the items on our agenda discussion and the resolutions. If you want to comment on any other topic, we will have another comment period later in the meeting. So these are the items you may comment on that will be on our agenda discussion. As already mentioned, Deb Starker will be here to give us an update on the restoration of the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, James Library. We'll have an update on Dodge Field Playground project, a discussion on creating a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. As mentioned, the 2022 Best Practices Checklist by our CFO. Also our CFO, Jim Burnett, will be presenting on MRC Solar Carport Project and a discussion on water rate increase for high-consuming residential customers. As you'll hear there, it is for the normal customer, there would not be any rate changes proposed. And these are the resolutions you may comment on, and these will be part of the consent agenda later in the meeting. 291 is authorizing the award of agreement with Animal Control Solutions for animal control services on a contract not to exceed $34,800. That contract currently is with St. Hubert's, and they are getting out of that business. Resolution 292 is rescinding Resolution 316-2021, contract to United Ford for purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 hybrid truck, which is no longer available. Resolution 293 is authorized negotiation contract for purchase of new unused transformers for the electric utility. Resolution 294, as mentioned, is the promotion of Nicholas Santangelo to position of foreman in the sewer department, effective September 23rd. Resolution 295 is authorizing payment of $47,818 to Persistent Construction, Inc. for sidewalk and cellarway replacement that was done on an emergency basis in downtown. That was a shared expense with property owners. Resolution 296 is authorizing purchase of building department vehicle under Educational Services Commission. This is a electric vehicle, a 2023 Chevy Bolt, not to exceed $28,475. Resolution 297 is approving raffle licenses for St. Vincent's on December 10th. Resolution 298 is a special event permit to allow use of Niles Park by Covenant House volunteers for overnight event on November 17th. Resolution 299 is authorizing Christmas tree sale by Rotary at Dodge Field from November 19th, which actually is set up through December 23rd. Resolution 300 is authorizing or approving an additional one-year moratorium and annual fee increases for parking permits, which is a fancy way of saying the parking fees are being frozen as we still return to a normal commute world. Resolution 301 is accepting donation of electric bicycle from the Madison Police, as already mentioned, the report from Pettico. This is valued at $5,300. We greatly appreciate their generosity. Resolution 302 is an annual resolution we do to allow restaurant bars and taverns in Madison to stay open until 2 a.m. On Thanksgiving Eve, which is consistent with weekend hours. Resolution 303 is enhanced statutory requirements, and this is encouraging the state legislation to take action to increase the 10-day notice requirement for land use permits to 21 days, and this hopefully would allow neighbors and others to be more informed and be prepared for major applications. Resolution 304 is resolution authorizing use of the Prospect Street parking lot for Santa's house. Santa will be coming to town, as you know, a week from Friday, and we're going to be letting him live in our parking lot as he visits all the children visit him. Resolution 305 is approving temporary signs for Rothenberg Orthodontics National Thanksgiving Food Drive, and this is November 15th to the 30th. Resolution 306 is confirming membership of William Zukakakis into the Madison Hose Company number 1 as a volunteer firefighter. So those are the resolutions you may comment on or the agenda discussions. Anyone wishing to comment on any of those topics, please step forward. You state your name and address and the topic that I just outlined that you're speaking on, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but I do give you a 1-minute grace.
Okay, I'm Claire Whitcomb, 12 Fairwood Road. I'm going to be really super fast. I would think that usually council meetings are not thrilling. These agenda discussions are really good, and I'm very thrilled that the carport is on the agenda. I'm really pleased by the Chevy Volt and the e-bike donation, and I just want to say for the record that I think it's very innovative to have a water rate increase for high users. You know, we had such a bad summer with the drought, and so many people were running their sprinklers unnecessarily. And I think that a move like this, combined with education and outreach that explains how to conserve water in low rain and high heat situations, can be hugely effective. And this is not a tax; it's just a way to help reshape behavior voluntarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Anyone else wishing to comment on agenda items or resolutions? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And we now move on to our agenda discussions. And welcome Deb Starker, Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, for an update on construction.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And just want to fill everyone in. So I just want to take this opportunity to talk about the ongoing preservation, conservation that we've been doing at the museum for all these years, and just to give you an update on your building and all the projects that have been happening. We've already been in communication with the building department, and I know that Bob Vogel's office has met actually with our construction engineers and all of that. So, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Usually I don't need a microphone, but anyway, so the next slide, there you go. So we are really incredibly fortunate in Madison to have so many historic buildings. You know, this is just a slide that shows, you know, the historic district. All of these, particularly wonderful sites that are not only on the state register, but the national registers of historic buildings. You can click again, Michael, and show this list. So these are some of the buildings. This is by no means a complete list, but we really are fortunate that in our very small, like 4.2 square miles, I believe, that we have these many historic buildings. And the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts occupies one of those, which is the James Library Building. So, next slide, please. So, of course, we're a history museum, so it wouldn't be fair if I didn't just give you a little bit of history. So, as you all know, the beautiful building, was built in 1899, and I love the one on the top there, which shows the original builders. Corbett was one of the people who did the construction, who lived on Ridgedale Avenue here, so there's a lot of connection there to Madison. It was built in 1899, and the little inset there shows the James building right across the street, which was built by the same people just the year before. And now that METC has its annex there, there's just that lovely connection one more time. So it's a beautiful, beautiful building, as you all know, and it was the home and to the Madison Public Library for 67 years, about, and it's been the home of the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts since 1970. And if you click it again, you'll show the building today. It really is a lovely, magnificent building, and it requires a lot of TLC, as you know. So today, next slide, please. Today, the James Building houses the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, and our primary mission, of course, is education. We see about 11,000 individuals every year. Well, maybe that was the pre-COVID numbers. I don't know what's happening these days, but these are through field trips, lectures, and tours, and we're known nationally as one of New Jersey's premier history museums. And we also have a collection of about 9,000 objects, artifacts, textiles, archival material, and just some of these images there show some of the wonderful things that we have going on in the museum, and I'm particularly proud of the one with the annex where we have the windows, so that's really wonderful. So the next slide, please. Okay, there, thanks. So just want to give you a little bit of perspective. The building that houses our museum has had some challenges right from the beginning. I think it was first built, and they discovered that there was some water seeping in the back. They had to have some waterproofing. They had some drainage issues. Part of the wall caved in at one point. And then the train tracks also are not, the train, as you know, 1837, the train came through Madison, and that was the first passenger train to New York City from Madison was 1837. But in 1914, they were built, they went up. So you can see the trestle there really kind of had much more of an impact on the building, because if any of you have been there, I mean, it is literally next door to the museum. So that has had an impact as well. So the next slide. So there has been a lot of work done on the building over the years. The addition of a conservancy in the late 1990s, and some drainage that was done about 2005. But then in 2012, the museum leadership decided to commission a preservation plan. And what the preservation plan did was it really kind of put into perspective, it looked at the building, they had engineers, they had architects, everyone looked at various aspects of the building to determine what needed to be done and when it needed to be done, and how could we preserve this building. So it just really takes into consideration the long-term conservation of this building. So if you note there, the purple area, so the top left that's the lower level, the basement level, lower level. And that purple area up there is actually where our collection is housed. Not all 9,000 objects were there. We have storage off-site in Chatham Storage, so some of our collection is housed there. But the bulk of everything was housed there. And as you can see, by the key here, I apologize for the image is a little, it's a little not so great. But anyway, you can see that that purple meant that was an area that really needed to be addressed, and when the preservation plan was done. But there were other things that also needed to be addressed that I think the leadership at the time thought maybe was a little more pressing. But you can see in the next slide, some of the things that we have done in the building over the years, the new copper gutters and leaders, we put a new Kemper roof on the 2 flat roofs, we replaced the finials, put a new slate roof on there. That roof was original, it was done in 1900, and we just replaced it 2 years ago. So it held up fairly well. So there was a lot of work that has been done, and through the preservation plan, based on the preservation plan, and the next page too shows you some more. These renovations here really were for the interior. You can see that we preserved some of the beautiful stenciling that was in the museum. That was all original, hand stenciled walls, and you can see that the new exhibit that we created on the top right. All of these renovations from the 2012 preservation plan totaled about $1.5 billion. And all of the funding came from a variety of sources. Most of the funding for this preservation plan came from the Morris County Historic Preservation Trust. And it was matched by matching grants from the Madison Open Space Recreation Historic Preservation Fund, and also from funds from the museum. So it really has been a group effort to preserve this really lovely and beautiful building. But we do have to address the collections room, and that's what I really want to kind of get to today. So this next slide, so this shows the state of the collections room probably about 2 years ago. It doesn't look pretty, but I will say that things that needed a little extra care, like textiles and archival material, we had a little better housing for them. But this just gives you a sense of what we had and how it was stored in that space that we had in the building. Oops, sorry. And in 2015, we created a strategic plan for the museum, and part of that strategic plan said that we were going to expand the museum. And we expanded it by taking some space in the annex, as you all know. So that's our education annex now, and we use that really for programming. And that really gave us a little bit of additional space that we could expand our facility. So the long-term plan was that we were going to expand the collections facility and move into one of the smaller children's rooms that was downstairs. So unfortunately, in 2019, we discovered this lovely mold that was that showed up in the collections room. Mold anywhere is a bad thing, but particularly next to a collection, it's a horrific thing. So we had to act a lot more quickly than we normally would have acted, as within our time frame that we had originally decided on from our strategic plan. So immediately we did the remediation, which was carried out in June of 2020. And the remediation was a partnership between the borough and the museum. We moved all of our open cabinet storage and artifacts. We moved it off-site. Thank goodness we had the annex because we used some of the space down there. And we moved about 4,000 artifacts altogether within the span of a couple of months. So that was a huge undertaking. But we needed to do this because we needed to get everything out of there, and we needed to have that mold remediated as the first part of the project to preserve this space. So the next slide, this shows you what that area looks like right now. It is down to the brick walls. This is the current state. All of our collection has been rehoused right now for temporary housing. And we are about to, so this is, well, I'll get to the next slide, but this is what the collection room looks like. So this is the feasibility study that we created, funded, again, by the Morris County Historic Preservation Trust with some match from the Madison Open Space. And we developed this plan to build a new state-of-the-art collections facility on site. The total project, from the remediation, the construction, creations of the cabinetry, the rehousing of the collection, is going to be about approximately $1.2 million all in. But we're very, very fortunate to have support, as Councilwoman Ehrlich said, from the New Jersey Historic Trust, but we also have another grant for $350,000 from the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we have approximately additional $650,000 in funding. We also have funding from the museum's Bruin Trust and a number of other foundations and support. So we do actually have enough of funding at this point, I think, to get through this, I hope. But you can see the design here. Those are movable storage cabinets, and we're expanding the space by about 40%. So that's really going to be a good thing. So the next slide shows, this is actually the top left, that's actually one of our storage cabinetry right now. So you can see that we do have some really good storage facility, but this is what it's going to look like. This is a rendition, these are other viewable storage facilities, but this is what our viewable storage facility is going to look like. We have retained the firm of O'Hara Construction, and I believe they're starting this week. And we anticipate that the facility will be fully complete with all of the objects installed in early 2024. We will have proper environmental controls, easy access for staff, high-density movable storage cabinets, glass doors, and a viewable window that's going to enable visitors to actually look into the facility. So people can come downstairs. There's 2 gallery spaces on the lower level as well, which will not be impacted at all. And when they're down there, they can actually see into the storage facility. So as I said, this is also going to increase our collections area on site by about 40%. We still will have to maintain probably 1 room off-site in Chatham, but as we move through the process, we will get to that at some point. So this final slide just shows you kind of the outline of what's happening. So our project team, as I said, is the museum, historic building architects who have been our architects since 2012. Actually, they helped us prepare the preservation plan. And Annabelle Radcliffe Trenner, as many of you may know here, she's really a magnificent, her firm is really an excellent historic architect firm. John O'Hara is the construction company. Storage Systems USA are creating the cabinetry, and Crozier Fine Art will help us actually rehouse the objects back into the museum. So the project timeline, a lot of this has already been done. The mold remediation has been done. Relocating the collection has been done. The feasibility study has been done. And the collection inventory, that's one of the wonderful kind of side advantages that we had from this project, is now we actually are going to touch and inventory every single object in the collection. Unfortunately, that has never happened before in the museum. I mean, there were sections that were taken care of, but this has never happened where every single object is going to be looked at, touched. What's the condition? Do we need it? Can we deaccession it? Where is it going to go? So that's really going to be a huge benefit to us. So that's ongoing right now with our curatorial staff. The design assessment is done, and the construction, as I said, is starting this week. And then we will be fabricating the new cabinetry, and we anticipate rehousing the collection and reopening that whole facility in 2024. And our project funding sources, as I said, the 2 biggest funders are the National Endowment for the Humanities, the METC Bruin Fund, the New Jersey Historic Trust, the New Jersey Historical Commission, Madison Open Space, the Borough of Madison, the New Jersey Council of the Humanities, Hyde Mawson Foundation, the Reed Foundation, and there are a couple of other smaller foundations. But this is a really massive project that the museum is taking on, not specifically a building project per se, to preserve the building. I mean, we're doing the preservation of the building to put a moisture barrier and to preserve the integrity of the building, but really the main point is to care for our collection. That's one of the main responsibilities of any museum, is you have a collection, you have to preserve it, conserve it, and make sure that it's still available for the public. And eventually, we will be digitizing the entire collection. That will take, that's going to be down the road once we get everything back, and once we've looked at everything. But that's kind of it in a really quick nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions, but my main purpose here was just really making sure that everyone, on the council, knew what was happening. Want to thank you all so much for your support. I mean, we know we exist in a borough building, and we're very grateful for that, and we take a lot of pride in making sure that we take good care of the building. So we invite you all to see this all when it's complete. Right now, admission to the museum is free because we do not have access to the lower level, so it's a great time for anybody to come and visit the museum. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not...
Any questions for...
Great.
Deb, thank you for the update.
Okay,
and,
thank you.
There's so many, kind of under messages there, or the fact that we have this great partnership for 50 years, maintaining this great building, the programs you offer. You've talked about moving across the street into the James building. I think if Willis James was looking down this room right now,
Yeah.
he'd be very proud of what his library, his dream has evolved into. And when we think about his James building, Larison's Pharmacy is no longer there on the first floor, but a great community center. And we happen to have representatives of Wind of the Spirit who are now on the second floor
That's
of the
right.
James building, just adding to that community feel of the whole thing. So thank you for your work and your partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we now move on to the Dodge Field Playground update. Deb?
So just a brief update. We had hoped to have the new design from the company that we're working with, Broadhead, and they did not quite get it finished. So we don't have that. So just a real quick update. The playground's going to be all access for ages 2 to 12. That's the whole goal, to update it and make it so that it's accessible to all kids. We have received, just the other day, comments from Tom Salaki and the Parks Committee, so we're going to look over those and see. I did a brief look, and we've actually taken care of a lot of what they've said since they saw the plans. High priority is to save the tree canopy, and then we got a price list, so we modified our first design to put in what we wanted to. Just a reminder on the funding, we have the original grant for $125,000, and then Ordinance 29-2022 appropriated $555,000 from the Open Space, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Trust Fund. Morris County Parks Commission agreed to jointly pursue a state grant, but Green Acres ruled that because Morris has an all-access playground, they can't apply for pilot funding. Our purchasing department found co-ops, which will help accelerate the project schedule, and Public Works is going to assist to work with the site to reduce costs, some of the site prep. And then finally, what's next? We're hopefully in the next couple of days going to get that site plan from the company, and we'll look it over as the playground committee and then share it with council, either in a presentation or through email. And then the hope is to go out to bid and get a timeline barring supply chain issues. And hopefully, if the planets align and the supply chain cooperates, possibly being able to do this in the spring of 2023 so that it's there for summer of 2023. That's all on that one.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the council? Yes, Rachel.
I think there's been some talk, possibly on the committee, but also informally, about repurposing the existing playground equipment.
Yes.
Is there an expectation or intention to make the disassembly and reinstallation of that equipment elsewhere in the borough? Is that part of the scope?
Yes, that came up at our last meeting to talk about it and where would be a good place to put it and make sense, because there's nothing wrong with the equipment. It's in good condition, but we would want the company to come in and take it out so that it stays secure and safe for the kids, and then also repurpose it. So that is in the discussion. I don't know if it'll be part of I don't know if it'll be a separate bill, I'm looking at Jim, sort of from the playground, or if it'll be incorporated into the playground. Incorporated into the playground is what I'm getting from across the room.
Well, I bring it up because there's been some grassroots kind of organizing in the Delbarton neighborhood to try to improve the Delbarton Park, and they are keenly interested in receiving hand-me-down playground equipment if it's available, so I just wanted to put in a word.
Yeah, they contacted me about that and asked if it would be possible, and it is on our site to look at, but there's also, that site's difficult because of the environmental stuff. So we have to look to see if it could go there without impacting the environment that's already there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was at least still part of the discussion. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? All right, Deb, we'll just roll right into the next one.
All right, so this one I'm hoping there's more of a discussion on. I am proposing that we add an additional committee to our boroughs and commissions. Right now, tentatively named Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm open to other names. And the purpose, and then I'll get into the makeup, the purpose would be twofold. One, to act as an advisory committee, not to provide any training or anything, but to help find DEI trainings for the borough and how to improve the diversity on the boards and commissions and council and borough employees ultimately. But it would just be advisory. That piece would not be anything that, would be, we must do this sort of thing. And then the other one is we start to plan more events for diversity. We had the fair in the fall. We're going to have another event in the spring to have input from a wider range of people that we knew were interested and we could kind of count on to get together. So makeup of the committee would be a council rep, Ray Cody, Jim Burnett, Lisa Ellis, Michael Plessier, and then 5 members of the community. And I'm just, with the 5 members, the question becomes is do we want to make any specific to like a specific group, or do we just want to say 5 members of the community and see what we get? So that's the intro, I guess.
And Deb and I had some conversation back and forth, and the suggestion of, for 2023 as an ad hoc committee and with a review, my thought behind that is committees often, when they launch, you go in different directions. And what you see, as the old saying goes, the team looked great on paper, but they had to play the game on grass. So what was perceived on paper may be different in the future, so we can have a full year and then revisit. And if it obviously is, I would anticipate that this would be a very active and important committee, but the actual charter may be different, making it a permanent one. I think the language probably would be that, not to define the 5 members of the community, but to encourage, based on the name of the committee and the purpose, that it represents a diverse, has a diverse representation of Madison. And I guess some feedback, this is heavy on, the ratio of borough employees to volunteers is a little heavy, so I think we might want to look at that, whether reduce the borough employees or increase the other, or a combination thereof.
Makes sense.
Other thoughts? Eric?
Yeah, I think the observation on the makeup of the committee is a good one. This would be maybe one of the largest borough employee committees compared to something like the DDC or others, so I think that's a good place. Again, I think as we refine the mission statement, whether DEI is the right name for the committee. In my work in higher education, I look at DEI as more of a policy setting, and if this is less policy and more events, then maybe DEI is not the right. If it's more policy and less events, there's kind of a balance that might need to be struck there, but without all the details, it's sort of hard to say. And then I suppose this, I know we've opted to ad hoc fund some of the programming events this year, but whatever the proposed budget for, you know, the operating budget for the committee, whether it's in the trial state or in an ad hoc state for 2023, would just be good to know going in. But I think it's a great idea, and it's sort of a natural extension of the work that's already been done the last few years with various events in the borough. So I think it's a great idea. So thanks for moving it forward, Deb.
Thank you.
Deb, when I look at the three words, I see the word equity really sticks out at me. And I think a lot can be buried in there, or that could be expanded upon, because equity to me means a level playing field. And I think education in terms of, you know, like maybe different levels of education, languages, all that comes into play. I know people who would be willing to work with you on this, so when the time comes up to look for names, reach out to me, because I do have some individuals in mind who would be good additions to this.
Yeah, and that's why the diversity, equity, inclusion, and I agree with Eric, it's K to 12, it's really the policies and that sort of thing, so it may be a different name, but the equity, if anybody's ever seen the fence with the kids lined up at it, and at first, you know, the tall can see, and the medium kid can, and then the little kid really can't, and then they give them all the same number of boxes, so everybody can see, but the tall kid has a better view, and then they give the tall kid no boxes because he can see, and then boxes for the other two to make it so they can see. And definitely looking at how to do that, and that's the sort of events that I want to get ideas for as well. The goal is to hopefully get this approved probably at the next meeting, I would assume, or maybe so that we can get people so that they can be part of the reorg in January, ideally.
Yep. Yeah, Maureen?
How we engage the community. So it's a lot for one committee, because either one of those could be, you know, one committee's worth of work. I'm wondering if one of the first steps, excuse me, for the committee would be to do a kind of a survey to see, of course, what policies are already in place in terms of hiring and outreach processes that pertain to HR and hiring practices and training. I'm sure we have a lot of compliance that we already do as an employer in the borough as an employer. And it seems like the committee could spend the better part of a year just making a roadmap for what its mission is and how to, you know, pursue these goals at different layers of, you know, public-facing events and opportunities. So I'm impressed by the ambition of taking this on for sort of like the whole town, and just want to encourage the sort of formation of the committees to do a pilot to figure out, well, what are we focusing on, right? Like, and does it need to be broken up into different chunks or different focus? Because it's a lot.
No, it's a totally valid point, and I think that's key kind of to the first one is we don't want to step on the borough's toes with what they're already doing, but come up with ideas that just might help them and say, hey, try this and you might be able to reach this community, or try this and you might be able to reach this community. So I'm hoping that's actually the smaller piece of it, because Sandy and HR and Jim and Ray and all of them already have stuff in place that they're trying, so we just want to help give them a little more push. if we have anything. But I think the main focus will be number 2, is education events, fun events, all sorts of different things.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions? All right, so probably what we can do is work on a resolution for the next meeting. Got feedback on tweaking the makeup, get the feedback from the staff. It may be staff as needed, obviously some need to be there on a regular basis.
Right.
Broader as needed. And we will put it out there, and then people can start filling out the citizen leadership forms, as he said, we launch them at the reorg meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Right. And now we move on to best practices, which should include diversity and inclusion and equity.
Thank you, Mayor. This is real quick. Every year, the borough is required to complete a best practices checklist and present the information to council. It's been presented to you already. We have certified and submitted it already to the Division of Local Government Services. We scored, as Councilwoman Cohen said, 34 out of a possible 36.5, which is 93.1, which I think just squeaks us into an A. So I just want to make my daughter and son aware that I got an A, or we all got an A. There are 3 items that we did not receive points on, and they're ones we've heard many times before under the audit exception, segregation of duties. They questioned whether we cleared all our audit exceptions. We're never going to clear that one due to cost. And there's an accrual of liability based on employees' accrued time, and we don't have a trust for that. We just don't do it. We have trusts for many other things. We don't have a trust for that. We typically don't pay employees out, pay them out over time instead of lump sum. And the third is submission of union contract calculations to PERC. Since all of our union contracts are kind of in a flux right now, we answered that as that we'll do it prospectively. So the best practices checklist was in your packet. I don't think there's any surprises there. We got an A, and I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions or comments? All right, let's flow right into solar.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I want to talk for a few minutes. As you all know, we've been looking at solar in various ways for almost 2.5 years. Thank you to Dr. Peter Freed, who's watching online and not feeling well, for all his work on this important topic. We were initially looking at community solar, and then we started pivoted to more what we'll call generation grade or higher level solar. So this evening we're asking council to go to the next slide, Michael. This evening we're asking council to go to approve securing funding via ordinance to hire a company to do engineering work to build a solar carport at the MRC. If you go to the next slide, Michael. This is a timeline of what's happened, and the big pivot and shift happened when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. That changed the finances for the way we were going to do the solar carport significantly. Originally, we were basically going to do a land lease where a company would come in, design, build, and maintain a solar facility on our property, and we would take that solar energy at a set kilowatt hour rate. Now, with the Inflation Reduction Act, we can get 30 or even 40% of the cost of the project paid directly to us by the federal government. And so because of that, that changes the finances significantly. We will instead, we're advocating that we would instead purchase the solar carport, design, build it ourselves and purchase it like we've done with the MRC or a road or a pump station. And we would get the SREC funds, we would get the energy that we wouldn't have to, we'd have a diverted cost because we wouldn't have to pay for the energy. So there's a number of benefits to doing it this way. It will be what I would say is cash flow positive right off the bat. We won't have to pay money into it because the money that we would be getting from it would pay off if we were borrowing. Haven't determined where we're going to borrow, but from a cash flow standpoint, it's cash flow positive. We think we can pay off the carport in 9 to 12 years. It would cost about $1.8 million, and we can do one carport, see what we did right, maybe make tweaks, and then go and consider doing the pool or Bailey Ellard or Public Works as sites 2, 3, and 4. Next slide, please, Michael. We did a grid modeling study, which basically proved that putting this amount of solar on our distribution system all the way at the end of a circuit at the high school is not problematic to our system at all whatsoever. We also analyzed the impact of the affordable housing development at Walnut Street, which shares a circuit, and there's absolutely no concern whatsoever, no negative impact of having any of the solar installations, whether it be the MRC, the pool, or DPW. Next slide, please. This shows the tentative layout with the solar panels. We're going to be refining this once we hire the engineer. And it can energize 50 to 85 homes depending on the size. There's no tree trimming, and it offers shaded parking at the MRC. Next slide. I covered some of the finances already, $1.8 to $2 million cost, 30 to 40% federal incentive. That's not including the SRECs. Payback of 9 to 12 years, and that 9 to 12 years, as I said, includes revenue from SRECs and the avoided cost of not having to buy this electricity. We need to refine the design, and we don't know supply chain issues. So as such, the purchase price, payback period, and the timing of this project are all to be determined. Next slide, please. We are considering, and we're going to be going in front of the planning board for a courtesy review, but some of the quick design details are that we would stay away from what I would say is the I-beam design. It looks very industrial and is not appealing, and go to a powder-coated design on the actual structure itself, and possibly with trusses. They're just more appealing, stronger, and better looking for a facility that will be visiting and people will be seeing, and will be, I think, a shining item that we can all be proud of. So we think we should spend a few more dollars to make it look nice. Same with, next slide please, Michael, is design details like possible pebble finish on the concrete piers and bumper guards on the concrete piers. We don't think the piers are going to impact parking in any significant way. They'll be placed at the corner where all the lines are, like you see at other locations where there are carports. And next slide please, Michael. Our next step is to work with the planner, the borough engineer, and to go in front of the planning board for a courtesy review. We welcome comments now or as we head towards the planning board in terms of design concepts. I hope to have a good conversation with Rachel. I'm sure there'll be more given her architectural experience on this. But we believe that the underground drainage, that there'll be there'll be drainage that will be connected to the carport that will take the water away from the carport. Right now, it's a sunny parking lot all the time, right? Because that's why we're putting solar panels there. It's going to be shaded once we put the solar panels up, so icing could be more of a problem. But we don't think it's too much of an issue to get the vast majority of the water that hits the carports, solar panels to drain off. There'll still be some water that hits the travel lanes, but we think that it's important to have that type of drainage and snow guards, LED lighting and alike, and we can be working with the engineer and the planner and then ultimately the planning board on those specifics. Next steps is we're asking, thank you Michael, we're asking council to advance an ordinance this evening and introduce it, which will allow us to fund the hiring of the company. This company is going to do everything from engineering, design, applications, SREC applications, construction management, basically soup to nuts. And we hope, as I said, to get a courtesy review in front of the planning board, and we hope to get this out to bid in early 2023, and based on supply chain issues, it'll be great if we could be doing construction over the summer or early fall at the MRC. So with that, I went real quick, I know. I'll entertain any questions. Deb?
Just a real quick one, when talking about the snow and ice removal, we just need to remember that the schools do use it during the day for overflow parking, so it needs to end up in DPW's early morning route, because I don't know if they're I think they're responsible, not the schools, for doing it.
They're doing that now, but we think it may be require more time and energy because of the shading and the potential icing, where normally they plow it, it's sunny and it's clear.
Right. That's all.
Okay.
Jim, I know that, oh, I'm sorry. My back was to you. I know you did the grid modeling on, Walnut Street and this project. If the school district were ever to put, or want to put solar on the high school property, do we know how much overhead is left on that circuit?
We have a lot. We have a lot, and Michael, once you go back a slide, because I kind of really talked too fast and missed two important points. In early 2023, we need to take some legislative action to the Borough Code. We have a kilowatt cap on the size of solar that can be in Madison. It's really, solar right now is designed for residential only. We are going to change that, or request council to change that, and we need to change that if we're to advance this project, and say that it now will be allowed for residential and taking baby steps, not going all the way with every customer, but saying that government entities can now do solar, and they can do it beyond the 100 kV cap. So we'll allow large-scale solar at Madison Housing Authority, Borough, and Board of Education. There's a need to modify that KW cap, and there's a need to modify actually the net metering, or the net metering code, and we actually need to also permit what's called remote net metering, because the goal here is to generate excess electricity beyond what gets consumed at the MRC and apply that to other borough bills. That's a net metering concept. We're going to have to do it manually at the utility billing department, so we can't do it across the borough just yet, because our utility billing software won't allow us to do it, but we can do it manually. And the Board of Education, if, the way I perceive us going to write the code, the Board of Education will have that opportunity as well. So they could put a lot at the at the high school on their roofs and their parking lots and say, we're going to do one facility here at the high school, and that will satisfy Torrey J and Kings Road, which are two, as well as the high school, which are two very shaded locations that may not be optimal for solar.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Any other questions or comments? Rachel?
Thanks, Jim. This is really exciting. It feels like this has been a long road, and there was certainly a plot twist this summer with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act that allows for direct pay. So this is a huge milestone. I want to thank you for diligently pursuing this. I also want to thank the Solar Committee that was convened a couple years ago to start talking this through. It's been a process. And I just want to acknowledge that the borough's open-mindedness and willingness to pivot to a totally different model of financing and constructing this when we got this game-changing new legislation that is designed to encourage solar uptake for public utilities and local governments, as well as churches, tribes, like any entity that couldn't previously, didn't have any tax liability and was therefore prevented from doing this kind of work. It's a game changer, and the fact that we could quickly pivot to this approach, I think, is just a testament to the quick thinking and open-mindedness. So I appreciate you leading on that and getting us to this next stage.
I'll take 30 seconds to explain this. When Tom put his solar panels on Atlanca Sales, he got a 30% tax, a tax credit. And Tom's solar panels, can I say how much they were? Is that okay? You don't mind. $500,000. He got a $200,000 tax credit for that, so he had to pay $300,000 because he got a tax credit because his company pays taxes. We don't pay taxes, so we put it up, but we can't. What are we going to do with the tax credit? What is the church going to do with the tax credit? So the federal government said, you know what? We're just going to give you the money. So that's pretty awesome.
This is great to see, and I thank Claire for also bringing attention during comment period and the timing, moderating a panel for Sustainable Jersey on Wednesday at the League Conference, and one of the things they've asked me to do as a moderator is brag about what Madison is doing, so I've just added to my list. So great to tell our story and lead the way. All right, we go from solar to water.
Jim Trimble's going to come up and help me with this, Mayor. This is a rate discussion, and Claire tip to the hand of what we're going to be talking about. Is Claire still here? Hi, Claire. That we're looking at the water rates. We talked about this during the budget cycle, how we happen to notice that there are a lot of utilities that have separate residential water rates and commercial water rates. We didn't have that until Jim put a whole lot of time and effort into the system to go in and make sure every customer was coded properly. Used to be if you had a 2-inch water meter, it was a 2-inch water meter, whether it was, believe it or not, Pine Acres having a 2-inch water meter or Mike Soriano on Woodland Road having a 2-inch water meter. Now we've separated that out and we know there's a 2-inch residential for Mike and a 2-inch commercial for Pine Acres. So as we were looking at this, we noticed that there are customers that use a lot of water and others that don't. So this is a little summary of the water department. I'm not going to go into it except that we have, we all know we have 2 water tanks and we have a number of wells that can only generate so much in water on a daily basis. Next slide, Michael. In 2021, we billed for 72 million cubic feet of water. This is weird, but a lot of utilities measure and sell water by cubic feet instead of gallons. There's about 7.48 gallons in every cubic foot. That water brought in $2.4 million in revenue. Next slide, please, Michael. The water rates are probably, Jim and I talked about this, legacy rates kind of before there was landscaping, where we had a slightly increasing rate, but not significant in terms of the break at the different consumptions. And you'll see later on that other utilities have breaks that happen farther out at 6,000 or 10,000 cubic feet. This is going to be our 2023 rates right there. Next slide, Michael. Jim loves this. This was awesome. Tell me when you're going to jump in too, Jim. This was Jim's thing. He pointed at that 5-gallon jug of water at the water cooler and goes, that's 2 cents. 2 cents for that water. Compare that to a bottle of water that you buy at Quick Check for $2. That's 20 ounces or something. So, I spoiled it. Go to the next one, Michael. I tipped the hand. So we have multiple residents in town that have summer water bills over $2,000. Over 90 days, they consume. Michael, you can keep sliding along. They consume 77. A customer that has $2,000 water bill over the summer consumes 77,000 5-gallon jugs. That is 855 jugs of water a day. Some of them consume over 8,000 gallons of water a day. It's just hard to fathom. I'm going to keep going, Jim, till we get a little farther, till we get to the rates, right? Okay. Next one is strain. No, Jim, I want you here talking. Next is strain on the system. On the hottest days of the year, we were pumping 3.2 million gallons of water a day. On these days, all of our wells are pumping, sometimes continuously, and it's actually difficult to keep the water level up in the water tank. And we have to keep the water up in the water tank to keep pressure throughout town. At times, our water consumption at 4 a.m. was exceeding our consumption at 7 a.m. We're all taking showers at 7 a.m., brushing our teeth, doing the dishes. You think that would be our peak, but it's actually these 500 homes that are irrigating and using heavy water during 4 a.m. and commercials that are causing our consumption to actually peak during the drought at 4 a.m. 50 years ago, you've heard me say this many times, water bubbled up out of the ground, out of our wells. Think Jed Clampett and Bubble and Crude. Now we have to go 60 feet down to get to that water, and so that's a concern. So we'll go to the next slide. I'm going to take this one, then Jim will jump in from here. Jim did all the analysis. This gives a breakdown of the customers and how much water they use. Typical customer at Chateau Thierry or on a smaller house that doesn't irrigate, you're going to be under 10,000 cubic feet. You're going to be one of the 4,300 customers in that top section. If you go over 10,000 cubic feet of water in a quarter, you're irrigating. You're irrigating, or you're filling a pool, or you're doing something very significant. So you can see that it's about there's about 4,700 customers, and it's only about a little over 400 customers that are consuming over 10,000 cubic feet of water. So I'm going to go one more, Jim, sorry. We are proposing that council consider a new rate for over 10,000 cubic feet of water. Our current rates for 2023 are on the left, the proposed rates are on the right. We're saying that if you have over 10,000 cubic feet of water, you would pay 6 cents. And we'll show some comparisons to other utilities, but just so you know, it's not a big moneymaker for us. It's $75,000, $85,000, and it would only impact 420 bills out of 19,000 bills. There's, 4,700 bills times 4 quarters. So it's only going to impact about 2% of the bills, but because of the work Jim did, we can implement this. If we introduce an ordinance in November and then hear it in December, we can introduce it as early as January, give everyone fair notice that there's a rate change that's occurring. So Jim, I'm going to let you jump in and talk about how our rates compare to our neighbors.
Okay.
Is everything okay? Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you did this whole thing. I hate public speaking. But here's our current water rates, like Jim was saying. The tiers are very small. That's why we're trying to introduce a new one over 10,000. To us, that's when you hit the excessive watermark. As you can see from these comparisons, we converted everything down here to be billed by the single cubic foot. A lot of other places bill by the every 100 gallon or so. So this is just, everyone's on the same level here. We are the cheapest of the bunch. You can see a bill for 5,000 cubic feet. Bill for 5,000 cubic feet, we're the cheapest, and that would stay the same because that doesn't hit the 10,000 mark. If we were to increase to this new rate for a bill for 15,000 cubic feet, we're still pretty much middle of the road. Same thing with 25,000. So we're really, we're not hammering anybody here. I think the whole point is to just incentivize using less, and our tiers and our rates don't really reflect that. With these new ones, it would kind of give people a little incentive to use less, and in these excessive uses, it's sprinkler water is what it is. Michael, if you could go to the, Jim put this in today. I think this is a proposed increase for one of the ones we were showing before. This would essentially mean these are all much higher rates than we have right now. This is what another, SMC
go back, Michael. So you can see that Southeast Mars, they bill on 100 cubic feet, so just move the decimal point twice. They're going to go from 8 cents per cubic foot for anyone over 6,000 cubic feet to, 6,000 cubic feet to 8.8 cents. They're increasing their water rates by 10.5%. We're talking about having a water rate break at 10,000 and it being 6 cents.
Yep. And they even have names for theirs to kind of tell you what they're trying to do with them. Okay, here's our top 20 residential consumers. You can see how much we took the names out, the names and addresses out. Well, you can see the old bills are very high as is. With the new increase, you can see that there's a pretty good incentive to use less water in this. I mean, don't look at the number one residential user. That's not normal, but we put them in there because you see that is the worst. That would increase a bill by $1,500. Typically, though, it's not that big of an increase, so I don't think we're hitting people too hard with this, but it is, just about putting some sort of level in there where we're increasing the pricing on water when you use it excessively. Michael, if you could go to the next one. So just as, from the beginning, we said our total billed water last year was 72 million cubic feet. It's a little over 500 million gallons. We billed 2.4 million for that in Chatham. The only two I could do were flat rate towns. Chatham was 2.9 million. New Jersey Water was 3.8 million for the same amount of water that we billed for. We'd be going up to maybe 2.5 and change. So it's really not revenue-wise that big of an increase. But again, the point is to incentivize people using a little bit lower. And not most people, just people that use water excessively. And that's it. Any questions?
Wow.
I'm going to add one comment that customer number one uses over 8,000 gallons of water a day, every day for 90 days during the summer. So Michael's putting it up there. So that's a bullet point up there. So we're also going to be sending letters to the top 25 customers saying, we just did an analysis. We don't know if you realize this, but this is how much you're consuming compared to the average, and you should have a look at your system. This is consumption that goes up over the summer. It's not happening year-round, so clearly it's irrigation-driven, but maybe there's something wrong with their irrigation system. There's a pipe broken underground. They don't have a rain gauge that stops it from watering when we have 2 inches of water like we had Friday. So we'll be sending letters out to these customers as well, but our suggestion is that council consider a rate increase effective January 1 for residential customers over 10,000 cubic feet, and that rate go to 6 cents.
Bob and then John.
honest with you, I do think this is not going to kill a lot of people. But my biggest comment is I wonder if it's not incentive. Because the ones at the top of that list, if they can use that much water, they're doing a heck of a lot of irrigation, which implies they have a big piece of property, whatever, and they can afford something on my part. They can probably afford it.
Yeah.
Something on my part, so I wonder if this is enough incentive in kind with the amount that you're walking it up.
That's fair. That's fair, and it may be that the letter, in combination with that, in combination with other actions, will stimulate conservation.
John?
I think Jim answered my question already. My question was going to be, are we going to notify these customers by letter before we implement these rates? You know, so that's only fair.
Yeah. There are a number that are consuming. Mike, can you go back to the top 20 customers? There are a number that are, consuming. When you get down to the 300th customer, they might be consuming 10,500 cubic feet of water. They won't even recognize that their water bill went up $15. So, but yeah, I think we need to notify the top customers.
Maureen, before I come around, I don't want to put you on the spot, but before I come around the horn, did you want to add? Okay. Deb?
Is there a reason that we are only adding, this is kind of along the lines of what Bob was saying, one at 10,000 and not another one either at 20 or 30,000?
It would be about 20 minutes worth of work. It's going to take us longer to write the code than it will actually be to implement that in our billing system. Our billing system, because of the work that Jim did, it's very easy to make that kind of change. So if council decides what Bob is saying, what you're saying, you say, okay, great, with 10,000 is 6, but now there's going to be the Southeast Mars, rate that you're going to get. I mean, and if you go back, Michael, to the different rates, one more, please. Southeast Mars, you're paying 8 cents for 6,000 cubic feet of water. Anything over 6,000, you're paying 8 cents. We're saying 6 cents for 10,000 cubic feet, and now maybe, Deb, you're talking about another tier beyond that, which we could easily do.
But if you go back to that slide, it's a handful as opposed to the 10,000 is where you capture the big users.
Absolutely, but I can't fathom these numbers. I have a family of, well, there's 4 of us now because one's in college, but a family of 5, and our quarterly water bill is consistently under $75. So I can't fathom what is happening. I mean, we don't have any irrigation system, we don't, so I get that. But to me, there's just a point where we gotta incentivize, even if it is only 26 customers or whatever, 30,000 is a lot of water to be using. So that's my opinion is I would have another layer at 30,000.
Doing some math, go ahead.
And that's all I had.
Okay. Rachel, did you want to?
Nothing.
Okay.
And this is only, obviously in the summer, like you said, this is all irrigation, because in the wintertime, there are maybe 2 or 3 residential customers per quarter that would go above the 10,000 mark. So this is, the 30,000 new rate that you're talking about might be 4 or 5 bills in an entire year. But, it's worth it.
And these 26 customers that are over 30,000, that is daily about 25,000 gallons of water every day for 90 days. Is that right? 7.48 times 30,000 equals divided by 9.
You had 8,000 before.
So 8,000 for number one, for the number one customer.
Oh, you're talking about all combined, the 26? Got it.
No, I'm saying that 2,600 gallons of water, this customer is consuming about 2,600 gallons of water a day during the summer months. Number one is consuming 8,200 gallons of water a day. Just that one customer is consuming, I don't know how they're doing it.
Or I like this better, almost 6 gallons of water a minute for 90 straight days.
And you know,
I had to
Jim-
ask the water department if that was even physically possible, pressure-wise, with some of the piping.
Jim, and I think you just hit a key point. Money aside, that's water coming out of the aquifers, out of our reservoirs, I'll call it, that have, now we have to go down to 60 feet to get the water. That's the key. It's not the money part, but whoever could take 99,000 cubic feet of water, they're not going to notice the difference in the bill. It's the water that they're using that's going to take away from the rest of the town. You know, that's less water for the rest of the town. That, to me, is the key.
And Eric?
Thanks, Mayor. You know, I think I wholeheartedly agree with Bob and Deb's comments, and I would even be more aggressive and put in a tier at 15 and then 25 with, you know, 7.5 cents or whatever. I think this is great data, and as Jim, as you know, I'm sort of a data nerd. So I love that this is all being driven by data and not what we feel or what we think or whatever. And it's very clear that we're painting a very clear usage picture here. And I think if our goals are around conservation, and again, it's not about sticking it to people, but our water rates are very reasonable, as the data shows. And I don't think that anybody could fault us for adding reasonable escalations in another tier or two above that 10,000 level. And, you know, we can pick where we draw those lines. We can, you know, that can be further discussion, but I think it makes a lot of sense, especially given what our neighbors at Southeast Morris County Municipal Utility Authority. They need a branding company to deal with that. But, so I think it's something we should consider as we pull the ordinance together.
So, I think Jim Trimble put it well when he said incentivizing, not hammering, and that's what we're trying to do here. Not to I have to throw this line out anyway, but we don't want to go to the well too often. So we want to try to, you know, do some modeling so we can get it right now, so we're not turning around and all of a sudden saying, we're raising it again because the incentives aren't working. But it's been pointed out that this is irrigation. You are making a choice to have a very green lawn, a lawn that will come back after a drought. You're making a choice when you don't put sensors in, you're watering your lawn after 2 inches of rain. You're making a choice that your lawn may be more important than the long-range life of the aquifer. So I think maybe what we should do is come back in one of our remaining meetings, or, you know, we could do this very early in the new year, but modeling of, that's been suggested, extra tiers, or I would even, you know, like to see the model of an 8 cents at 10,000 instead of the 6, just as a, not that I'm throwing that out there as the answer, but I think if it's not that hard to model those, and so we can make a good choice and go to the well once.
So we know the consumption. Is the modeling just to understand the dollar impact?
Yeah, I think, and as has been pointed out, this is, on the budget side, this is very small. What we're seeing in these numbers is, you know, at number one customer, which is actually, you know, clearly an outlier, you know, maybe they're making a choice, but at the lower end, you know, they may not put that sensor in. They may not change their irrigation habits, and they may say it's, you know, I want my very green lawn. So I think just to understand what it does to this chart in particular, does it create more incentives to shift back from the amount of irrigation going on?
So 2 points I want to bring up. Having too many breaks, Michael, can you go back to our water rates, the current and proposed? Right now, 0 to 1,000, every one of those is a line on your bill. You know, here's what you're getting charged for your first 1,000, here's what you're getting charged for 1,000 to 3,000. So if we add 2 more or 3 more tiers, it's just adding more lines to the bill. I want to be maybe a little conscious of that, but, and then, Michael, if you go back to the customers, I apologize for asking you to do that. It's pretty easy to look at and say, okay, this went from 4 cents to 6 cents. We know from 6 cents to 8 cents, it's going to be about that same increment. I actually think the letters are probably going to be as effective, if not more effective, than the water rate. I think the water rate is the right thing to do. I think the letters will hopefully convince the people to do the right thing.
And as you pointed out, that number one person may be watering the roots because there could be broken lines.
Yeah.
Eric?
One last thing, Jim, on your comment. If, one option, although I think the path of least resistance is adding a tier or 2, but I suppose there'd be nothing if we wanted to stick with 5 or 4. We could just redraw the lines across all the rate tiers and just remodel the whole thing. I know that's more for you.
No, it would be a little bit of math, but the math is going to be $50 here or there. Michael, if you go back to the rates, I apologize. If you just said it's going to be 1 to 3,000 is 3.36 cents, even giving the lower people a little bit of a break that are under 3,000, and instead of having 2 tiers there of 0 to 1 and 1 to 3.
Right.
And then
1 to 5, 5 to 10, whatever.
1 to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 20, and then 20 up. It would be very easy, and the modeling in terms of the math is, I think we all kind of agree.
Excel will do that for us.
Yeah, but I think we all agree. Like, if I showed you that, whether it's $50 more or $50 less, I think it's more that rate and being similar to other municipalities and other providers. That's probably the most appropriate thing. And so, however you want to do it, we could do it now. We could do it in the spring. We could do it in January.
Spring is too late, so it's either we advance it now or it's the first thing in the new year. So it's a matter. I think the best thing would be to come back next 2 meetings and then we codify it in the new year, early in the new year. Going just beating a dead horse, but the extra lines, I think if we went that direction, it really helps people say, okay, if I cut back this much, I'll get rid of that bottom line where I'm really paying a whole lot of money. And so, small little incentive.
Because we bill quarterly, in order to be fair, we would have it be effective April 1st, either January 1st or April 1st.
Yep.
That way, everybody got their quarter number 1 at the old rates, and then starting quarter number 2, everybody's going to get 3 bills this year under the new rate structure.
Yep, and it's really, as Jim Trimble pointed out, the first quarter is a moot point anyway, because no one's really using that.
Anything else, JT?
No, I think that's it. I think like what Jim was saying too, I think these tiers were made up at a time when anything over 3,000 was considered excessive. So to just kind of stretch those out, maybe it might be something to think about. Also, just in terms of irrigation, I see plenty of houses that use the sprinklers all the time, have very nice looking lawns, and do not themselves go over the 10,000 cubic foot mark. It was just kind of a number that we came up with. This is when you hit this benchmark, that's really being excessive. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you.
It was a great presentation. Thank you.
All right, now we go to our ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
The ordinance scheduled for hearing was introduced by title and passed on the first reading at the regular meeting of the council held on October the 12th, 2022. Was posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call on ordinance 45-2022 for second reading. Ask the clerk to read said title by title. Said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending section 56-4 of the Borough Code to set the annual alcoholic beverage license fees for a theater exception license number 37.
Anyone wishing to comment on this
Mayor Conley, Town Council members, my name's Dee Billia, and I'm the interim general manager at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey. So we're very thrilled to have this ordinance up for the vote, and yeah, I understand you have a proposed a fee for the ordinance, which is very reasonable for our organization. Many of you know the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey has been around we're in our 60th year this year, and it's had a high impact on the surrounding community here as far as economic benefits. Probably, brings in, over $10 million a year in economic benefit into the community. It's educating our children, helping them to be better learners and potential leaders when they participate in an arts event. The Shakespeare Theater's live company tours around the state and out of state as well, and brings renown to this community as the home of the Shakespeare Theater, and also, brings in lots of people into Madison and through the restaurants and so on. So in the past couple of years, of course, we've been experiencing the impact of COVID and a lot of negative economic impact on our organization. Inflation is here, salaries have gone up, our income has gone down, so we're very delighted that this ordinance will be hopefully passing so that we can generate some additional revenue stream for our theaters, as well as giving an enhanced experience to our customers. They will appreciate it. It won't be a massive revenue stream for us, since we'll be only selling before the show and at intermission, 2 very short spans of time, but it will have an impact on our bottom line, and we are sincerely appreciative of this, and we thank the town council for putting this in play for us. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Coming out tonight. We've communicated through email, so it's great to see you face.
Nice to meet you, too.
Anyone else in the public wishing to comment? Seeing none? No, just on this ordinance. Yeah. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 46-2022.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 46-2022 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in a newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now it's time for comment on any topic. Please step forward if you'd like to comment, and state your name, your address, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but we'll give you that usual 1-minute grace period, and we won't have a surcharge for the extra minute.
My name is Chris Hepburn. I live in Hardwick, New Jersey. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't get out that much. I am here on behalf of the Friends of the Druid Forest, as someone generally is, always is. I haven't been to the Druid Forest in a while. I will go tomorrow morning, but I can tell you with confidence that it is now covered, the ground in the Druid Forest is covered with a layer of leaf litter. I want to say that though it's called litter, it is extremely valuable, so I'm here to talk about leaves. For one thing, leaf litter stores carbon, so it's just another way, it helps the forest mitigate climate warming. This was actually news to me, although my brother today informed me that any idiot would know that leaves store carbon, but I didn't. I know about trees. So anyway, when you see all those leaves, the more carbon being stored, and northern forests do a great job, partly because their leaves stay longer intact because of our cold weather. And you've already heard before about leaves acting like sponges, absorbing stormwater, preventing runoff, helping charge the aquifer, prevent flooding. Leaf litter also provides food and shelter for a huge host of creatures. Among them, my personal favorites, toads and salamanders, who spend most of their lives, practically most of the months of every year, living under the leaves or under rotten wood. There's also countless microscopic and tiny creatures in the leaf litter, providing the kind of lower level of the food chain that goes all the way up to things we know and love. They also are breaking down the leaves to create rich soil eventually. The leaf litter also, and this is important, shelters pollinators, like certain this is all kind of new science, shelters pollinators, certain bee species, butterflies and moth species, spend the winter, survive by spending the winter in the leaf litter. They're either, depending on species, eggs, larvae, or adults, who then, come spring, will leave the leaf litter and get to the trees and eat. These creatures are not only important as pollinators, they're extremely important for providing birds, especially in their larva form, providing birds with the ability to create the next generation of birds, to feed them, I shouldn't say create them, raise them. So the fallen leaves in the forest are valuable. Because the Friends of the Drew Forest exists, the members of it care about the environment. It's not just a NIMBY and not my backyard phenomenon, as you know. I also like to make a pitch for leaving the leaves on your yard. I want to tell you what I do. I organize them, I don't banish them. It takes a little bit of a change, but I want to assure you that I have a husband who is your typical lawn lover, green, but we compromise. So, first of all, I stopped mowing under my trees, but very neatly. It looks tidy, or I would be divorced. So I make the mower makes a circle.
1 minute, please.
Okay. I'm almost done, makes a circle. And then now the leaves are falling, they've gone all over the place, it's kind of messy, but I'm organizing, my yard man is blowing what isn't under the trees to under the trees. Again, in a fairly neat circle, not piling them this high, spreading them in a circle under the trees. So they don't blow away, and they really don't blow, they stay very neat. And of course I leave them in every garden bed. So for both the trees and the garden plants, they're providing moisture, protection from weather extremes, and nutrients, all for free. So I think that's about it. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Chris, and just as your brother taught you something, you taught us something today, and appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Claire Whitcomb again. I also want to say happy birthday to Chris Hepburn. She came and commented on her birthday because she's a leaf lover. I also, I'm here to talk about the Doug Tallamy talk that the borough hosted this week, and I'd like to give a huge shout out to you guys, to the council, to the mayor, to Ray Cody, to Michael Pelessier. Ray sent this to some acronym I don't remember, but it's the New Jersey League of Managers? Municipalities. We had 14 towns attend for this noon Zoom. Borough employees and committee members, Joe Santoro came from the zoning board, Dennis Harrington came, Bridget and I are going to Bridget Daly and I are going to arrange donuts for a DPW screening sometime. Ken O'Brien's going to fix a time, maybe in January. Douglas Tallamy is probably the most famous native plant educator in America. He's the best-selling author of Nature's Best Hope. He's co-founder of the Homegrown National Park movement and website, and his talk was designed for municipalities, but it's really great for just about anyone, and it addresses so many of the things we've been talking about tonight. Shrink your lawn, leave your leaves, plant natives, remove invasives. Native plants are plants that are native to the U.S. I mean, European colonists, everybody's brought in lots of plants from around the world. The trees out there are from China, I believe. But only native plants can support, they're host plants. Caterpillars need something to chew. Butterflies and moths need to lay their eggs on native plants and in leaf litter, as Chris mentioned. So we've carved up our landscapes into small bits too small to support biodiversity, but Talamy is unique in that he's all about hope. All of us, even in my small yard, can create some area of habitat that will create a connection to Deb's yard, to Rachel's yard, and so on. And so all of us can kind of collectively create what he calls a homegrown national park. So this is just a super inspiring, very hopeful talk. He mentioned one of the simplest things we can do is put in yellow tone lighting, and I think that that's being explored in municipal lighting. We talked about it from the MEC letter for the zoning board hearing this week, and it's a little hard to figure out exactly what that means for commercial applications, but basically white lighting attracts moths and it kills them, and it limits an important pollinator, and the caterpillars of moths are an important food source for bugs. So I highly recommend that the letter that goes out to those mega water users include a link to this Zoom talk on the borough website, and I also think that it could have some educational tips. Chris mentioned runoff. A lot of people water their sidewalks and also lawns are poor conduits to the aquifer. So, you're taking a lot and it's not going back anywhere. And thank you very much. I mean, it was a huge, huge leadership on the part of the borough to have this Talamy talk, and I really want to give credit to Bridget Daly, who wrote to Douglas Talamy, asked Ray, could the borough do this, and Ray just said yes. It's a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we now go on to introductory ordinances. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Ordinance is scheduled for introduction and first reading tonight. We'll have a hearing during the meeting of November the 28th, 2022 in the second floor chamber of the Hartley Dodge Memorial Building, and 8 o'clock or soon thereafter as practical. Further consideration and final adoption. Said ordinances will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on at the main entrance of Borough Hall, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinances for first reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title. Ordinance 47-2022.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $89,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for solar carport development consulting work.
Mayor, I move ordinance 47-2022.
Second.
And this is what our discussion was. Any further discussion on this ordinance? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Ordinance 48-2022.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 134 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Parking Lots.
Mayor, I move ordinance 48-2022.
Mayor, I second the ordinance.
Discussion as we have been modifying the use of our parking lots in this our new world. This cleans up some of the language, which includes parts of the ordinance refer to the Civic Center parking lot, which will no longer exist. But also, we made the Green Avenue parking lot available to shoppers, and I think that was a big boost to add more parking close to town. But there's some surplus parking, so we would allow some merchants parking there also. And it's as we continually review usages of our pavements, we'll make the best use of them. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
All right, consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move Resolution 291-2022 to Resolution 306-2022.
Second.
Any discussion or any that need to be pulled? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
All right, there is no unfinished business. Will the clerk please read the voucher totals?
For the current fund, $684,096.51. From the general capital fund, $20,508.46. From the electric operating fund, $227,822.21. From the electric capital fund, $203.27. From the water operating fund, $59,165.76. From the water capital fund, $687,330 even. From the trust, $68,001.61. The total is $1,747,127.82.
Mayor, I move approval of the vouchers.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Only thing under new business is happy Thanksgiving to all that are here and at home, and if you're traveling, have best of travels, and if you're not, we'll see you next Friday for the lighting of that beautiful tree. With that,
Mayor, I move we adjourn the meeting.
all in favor?
Aye.